Alright. This is like the 5th dream or something? I don't know. Let's get it. This dream starts out with me angering some kind of world-renowned terrorist. My pussy-ass nation banished me to the Fishman Deadlands or something like that. Anyways, it was super hostile and somehow I ended up hitting my head. I wake up to a bunch of pixies giving me a head wrap. Apparently my skull was trying to open like a blooming flower and they had to tightly wrap it so it stayed intact. I wake up after they start and I look at what they're doing. After they are done with my head wrap, I was pretending to stay asleep. They started a surgery on a stuffed animal thing. I wanted to help, so I waited for what seemed to be an opportunity to join in. However, my head injury made me straight retarded. I put my hand in the open zipper thinking I was being helpful somehow. The head fairy asked, "What the fuck are you doing?" Embarrassed, I pulled it out and said, "Helping?" She said, "If you really want to help, then put your hand in zone 2 and apply pressure." I was super confused and asked, "What? Is that like the spine or something?" She looked over to her other 2 fairy friends. "No," she said, "it's here." She landed on the animal and pointed at its shoulder blade area. I put my hand in the spot expecting it to feel like a stuffed animal, but instead it had muscle and bone underneath its stuffed exterior. I felt around the area she pointed at and felt this muscle popping out. Most dogs have it. It's the one near the shoulder blade. I tried to confirm the location with her, but before any words can come out, she said aloud, "Nope, further down." I put my fingers just below the muscle where it felt like the skin and bone. I looked to her and she said, "There you go." I applied quite a bit of pressure and they did their thing. I finally sit up and get a good look at the room. I'm in the outside game room. Instead of the pool table, there was an old bed with lots of big, thick yarn blankets. I was laid there with this stuffed animal in my lap. Then I saw a little Frankenstein dolly run up to the bed and bark. She seemed to have patches of hair missing and miscolored skin in those same spots. Instead of dog-like gray skin, it was more human-like, with pale white and a bit of pink. I started petting her, like I always do, but she got too excited and went into some kind of rigor mortis state. I freaked out and started giving her chest compressions. She was stiff and not breathing. I started screaming and crying and I was super scared and emotional, and the world started shaking and everything was going green. I ran outside only to be stopped right on the first tile of the walkway. Everything that was normally there was there, except for the ground and tiles. They were all replaced with this reflective dark water. Given that it was night, and it was pitch black where the lights didn't illuminate, I'm sure the water would have been a brilliant blue during the day.
But for now, it was a beautiful black reflective looking water.
I sat on the tile and cried for a bit. It was very peaceful and serene. I went back into the game room. The fairies were talking about me when I walked in. They were saying that they were scared to keep me around because I was the guy that the terrorist was looking for. When they realized I was there listening, the purple one looked visibly shaken. I nodded to them and left once again. I was at some massive party being thrown in celebration of me and a few other people. To enter the building, you had to climb this ladder into a miniature ice rink looking thing. There was this metal balance beam which twisted like a Q. For some reason I thought if you stepped off the beam onto the ice you would be frozen to death or something. People were straight booking it on this balance beam. Not one was falling. I waited for it to clear up a bit and then did it myself. I made it to the end no issue, but decided to look back. Angelina was sitting on the rail. I guess she got scared and decided to sit. Up the ladder, however, came Christian, the blind kid from my school. He was tapping his cane everywhere and asked aloud, "Is this where the party is?" I looked at Angelina, who was already looking at me. We were both wide-eyed as if to say this man's about to die. He then squats extremely low and leapfrogs to the nearest metal beam. He does this 3 more times consecutively to reach the other side. He walks past me, still asking if this is the right place for the party. I make sure not to utter a word. I looked at Angelina, who was just as shocked as me, both wide-eyed and gaping mouths. I leave Angelina and walk into the party. It was in this massive building, very well lit. The walls were yellow and the lights were even more yellow, making the room look gold. The ground was uneven, having lots of different elevations to the booths. Our guest of honor table was at the very entrance, pretty low, but not the lowest in elevation. The table consisted of me, Brant, Matthew, John, and Evelyn. We were right next to the wall, which was completely covered by a buffet of random assortments of food. I sat down and looked at my food tray, which was a 42-ounce styrofoam cup of liquid cheese and a small thing of french fries. Before I could complain about this weird-ass tray they gave me, John says to me, We are the guest of honor and we couldn't all make it here on time. He then looks at me wide-eyed for about 3 seconds and then busts out laughing. What the fuck is this? I say, looking at Brant. It's your food, he says back. I mess around with the cheese and talk with the group a bit. I looked at people's food to maybe give them some cheese, but they all had things that didn't pair well with cheese. The only notable one being Evelyn's chicken nuggets. I would have tried to get her to take some for the nuggets, but her plate was already basically filled to the brim with cheese. Too fucking much cheese. The party started dying down, and I kind of dissociated for a second. When I came to, John and Evelyn were away, and Brant was no longer there at all. Me and Matthew chilled for a minute, but I realized I was waking up. The lights were turned off, and the details seemed to be fading from things. Zero commotion, and almost no noise. I told Matthew we needed to find John and Evelyn. We went straight to the buffet, and they were behind this glass on the corner. The glass was quite foggy, and I couldn't make out their faces at all. I told them that I needed to tell them something serious, and then told them that this was a dream. And judging by the change of ambience, I was about to wake up. John and Evelyn laughed, but Matthew knew I was serious somehow. He asked what would happen to him, and I replied that I didn't know. I told him I could put him in another one of my dreams just for safekeeping. He said that would be fine and to put him into a fantasy world. I told him I had a good idea and I could put him in my dream of the afterlife. I was very happy in that dream until the very end. I thought it was the best choice. As soon as I did though, it took the rest of my power and I woke up. This next bit's kind of silly. Brant and Jeremiah from high school and I were world-renowned tank operators. We went to apply to the military to be tank operators. We walked in this big garage and there's this military officer, a colonel. He yells at us, "Let's see what you got." Me and Brant just kind of stand on the sidelines and Jeremy gets into the tank and starts moving the cannon. He was far too close to his target to be hit. The tank couldn't even aim that low. Jeremy's response was to shoot the shell super weak and arc the shot to hit the targets. There was a very big assortment of barrels and boxes. He hit like 3 barrels in a row and just got out. I looked at the colonel, who had a single tear running down his face. "Beautiful," he says. Then the dream cuts to us driving down the highway in a tank in the middle of grassy fields and classic rock playing. I was just chilling at home with a bunch of weird dream stuff happening. I was super aware of the weird things, but not that I was asleep. I was looking at that picture of me on the fridge, the one where I'm in baseball, the fat one. My dad reaches past the magnet and was messing with some papers on the fridge. His arm moved past the magnet, blocking it from my vision, but when his arm passed it, the picture had changed, a seamless transition. I was walking out of frame to the left while looking at the camera. Once again, my dad's arm passed the magnet. It changed again. I was walking off frame in the opposite direction while looking away. This time, I yelled at my dad, "Do you see this?" Then my dad pulled his arm back for good, passing the magnet for the last time. This time the picture changed and it was some skinny kid with light brown hair that was just standing there looking at the camera disgusted. I go to my room, my old room, tripping balls, and for some reason I had a window on my door. I hang my pants on the door like a curtain. I think I was trying to hide something. I looked out my window and the cypress tree was replaced by a massive Christmas tree. It was shittily wrapped in Christmas lights. The doorbell rings. I hear young Devin out the hall answer the door. The guys ask about me, and she just says, "You guys are sketchy," and slams the door in their face. I go out to the living room and look out the window to see 6 guys walking away. I was bored, so I run after them. I went out the front door and called them. I swear I remember this differently, just slightly. They were walking around back, very sketchy. I run up and say, "I'm Aiden." The guys were all fairly tall, the 2 closest to me being exceptionally tall, like 7 feet. The front 3 dudes pull out knives, and they start coming at me. The 2 tall ones on the sides go to stab me, but I grab their arms and toss them behind me. The last dude goes on the defensive, but it doesn't matter. I drop low and grab his leg. I pull him far behind my back and throw him as hard as I could overhead. He flew out of sight past the clouds. The back 3 guys pulled guns. My heart dropped and I went feral. I squatted low and launched like a hunter from Left 4 Dead. I landed on a guy, left hand on his head and right hand on his shoulder. Feet to his stomach and ribs. I pried his head to the side and unhinged my jaw to encompass the entire surface of the side of his neck. I bit very forcefully and tore a large chunk of meat off his neck. He sharply inhales at presumably the shocking feeling of this pain. I leapt back off him and he fell on the ground. I felt like a badass. I feel like I remember a few more things of that dream that I didn't write down. It could just be a few other dreams that I'm mismatching here. This one's a pretty old dream, so the memory could be all messed up. But I feel like after the guys ring the doorbell, I ended up in my room looking at porn, but I was just bored. I wasn't like horny or anything. I was just like, there's nothing to do right now and I'm bored. And then after I get up, I feel like I remember telling Devin, like, don't you be doing that stuff. You know, if someone asks for me, that's my business. She's like a little baby Devin. What was the third thing? There's a third thing. Oh yeah, the third thing, I thought I remembered spitting out the chunk of meat, but I didn't say I did. I don't imagine I just left it in my mouth. That'd be pretty gross. Anyways, moving on. This is the last little tiny bit. There's not much left. Devin was having a party. We were all sitting on a long table. There was lots of food. It was all of my lunch table, all of my friends, some of Devin's friends, even some she's no longer friends with. I started getting lockjaw and began freaking out. And that's all I wrote, but I also feel like I remember some of that dream that I didn't write down. Something about freezer or something. That was quite a while ago. A little disappointed in that. You know I said that.